Great. And since I don't have a PowerPoint, I'm just going to sit back here and do my presentation here, because I start putting my papers up there, I'm sure I'm going to make a mess of everything, which is what I do best, actually. That's why I'm a lawyer. Okay, for those of you who've paid attention to your preliminary program, you know that Jim Broderick was supposed to be on the panel in this spot. Jim sends his regrets for not being able to come today. As you know, Southeastern Colorado Water Conservancy District is involved with the management repayment of the Frying Pan, Arkansas project, which is a federal reclamation project. He got a call from reclamation officials who've been out for a number of weeks on a health thing and said, hey, we need to meet right away. So when the reclamation calls you and you have a reclamation project, you go when they ask you to go. And so he's not here today, and he sends his apologies. Some of you may be disappointed that Jim's not here. Nobody is more disappointed than my fellow panel members. They made it clear that they were hoping that Jim would put the ripple in the ripple of the Colorado River, and so you know, you've already seen what James has done, and so the standard's pretty high, so I'll see what I can do to fill in that regard. I would suggest very strongly, though, that you take a look at the bios on page 2. Particularly take a look at James Eklund's bio. I was very impressed with James' bio. I think it might have been a little spicier if the governor had helped him write it, but I was very impressed. You look at my bio, see, I didn't know that, you know, the standard here, and so my bio is a little more boring. But if you take a look at it, it's fairly obvious, you know, trend that develops. You know, I was a water lawyer for the feds. I was a water lawyer for the United States Senate. I was a water lawyer in the AG's office. I was a water lawyer in private practice. I was a water lawyer now for Southeastern. So the trend's obvious. I can't hold a job. We'll do the best we can. We're going to talk about the ripple effects of a Colorado River call. Now, just so everybody knows, you know, we're a little behind here. So that means that this presentation is going to eat into the break. So this is probably a good time to go get a cup of coffee right now, because when I get done, John's going to tell you why everything I'm telling you is not going to happen. So just you know, keep it in mind, you know, the coffee's over in the exhibitors area. I'm sure that they're set up by now. I went just before our presentation, there was no coffee. So finally, last disclaimer here. Since James was very good about making sure that he gave Justice Hobbs credit for that portion, knowing what that history might be, I want to tell you that if you don't want to listen to my presentation and you really do want to go get coffee, there's this great article by a man by the name of Alan Best that was in CoBiz Mag in 2009 that I've stolen from liberally. And in fact, if you were quoted in that presentation, Alan Ward, this is your 2-minute warning, you might get to hear about it again today. So, why are we here? Are we geographically challenged? This is the Arkansas River Basin water form. Why are we talking about the Colorado River? We obviously, you know, maybe this is, you know, you remember, some of you went to the Colorado Water Congress meeting a couple of years ago where Doug Kemper brought in all the folks from Australia, and I assume that was because he wanted a return trip to Australia to come out of it. And so, you know, I mean, I guess that's maybe one reason why we put it on here, although I'm not really sure that return trip to Glenwood Springs is quite the same as going to Australia. But there's a significant reason, actually, why the Arkansas Basin cares about what's going on in the Colorado River. Between 30 and 50% of the water that's consumed on the eastern slope comes from the western slope, Colorado River Basin. Basically, we're sitting in a situation where, in this basin, the Fryark project alone averages about 57,400 acre-feet of water, which is a portion of about an average of 400,000 acre-feet that comes from the west slope to the east slope on an annual basis, on an average annual basis. And so, when you start to break that down, at least one newspaper article stated that that was about 70 to 80% of the water supply for Colorado Springs. It's about half of the water supply that provides for the city of Pueblo. And in agriculture, it's a significant supplemental source of water to keep the Rocky Ford cantaloupes growing, although God knows whether we'll have any Rocky Ford cantaloupes this year. I know they're working hard to change their image back to the fine image that they had before. But it's a significant source of water. We on the east slope, we in the Arkansas Basin are very dependent on the Colorado River for a supplemental source of water. And so this is why we're interested in this topic. This is why the topic's on your agenda. Now, James has already outlined to you the multitude of statutes that go into the issues surrounding the Colorado River, and did a wonderful job on that. And he put up a great slide that talked about what happens, what's the situation in curtailment. Now, James also showed a slide and basically showed our reservoir and their reservoir. Realistically, we don't even think about them as water reservoirs. We think of them as bank accounts, because that's the account that we put water into so that we can make the 7.5 million acre-foot release on an annual basis, or the 75 million over 10 years. That's what helps to make sure that we are able to provide that amount of water. Now, nobody, once we got that filled, it took 17 years to fill Lake Powell to capacity. And once we got that filled up, we in the upper division felt pretty good about where we were going. And then 2002 hit. 2002 changed everything. And by 2005, 2/3 of the amount of water that was in Lake Powell was gone. And people are going, when is this drought going to end? And oh my God, are we thinking about a compact call? Now the good news is in 2006, it snowed, and we got, we got out of the crisis situation. Now, if you look around this year, things are looking a little bit scary. It's still early, and our friends here have already introduced us to say that we're going to have many more snowstorms up here in Leadville, and that'll be a good thing for all of us, particularly in the Fryark Basin. So, but what happens if it doesn't snow? What happens if 2006 doesn't happen? What happens in the situation where we have curtailment? I just told you, 70 to 80% of Colorado Springs' water supply, half of Pueblo's water supply, and basically all of the cities, the major cities along the Front Range, rely on the water supply. Well, the good news is you look around here, and you know what my first point. What's the first thing that's going to happen in the event of curtailment? Litigation. That's why everybody up here is in suits and ties, because the first thing that's going to happen, and maybe the last thing that's going to happen on this topic, is going to be litigation. Now, in this article that I'm stealing liberally from in 2009, Jim Lockhead, who was then in private practice and kind of the guru of Colorado River law, at least outside of the state and away from James Eklund, said, oh, it'll be at least 15 years of litigation. Well, I think Jim was being an optimist in that article. His predecessor at Denver Water, Chips Berry, in the same article said, well, it'll be at least as long as the Arkansas River Basin litigation, and that was more than 20 years. I think James gave us the best, at least, indicator of a number when he talked about the litigation starting in the 1930s between the lower basin and finally ending in 1963. I think that's at least a good ballpark of it. But then you get into the question, well, which litigation are we talking about that's going to take 30 years? The first thing that we're going to have is we're going to have litigation between the upper basin and the lower basin. The lower basin will sue to enforce the terms of the compact. Then the next thing that will happen somewhere in the first 2 to 3 years of that litigation is the upper Colorado River Basin states will sue each other. It's because they don't know how to administer a call on a multi-state basis. And there's a varying degree of information that each of the states have as to what their consumptive use is, how much do they owe, and when you don't have information, you do the next best thing, you litigate. Then we'll have the third piece of litigation, which is, Dick Wolf doesn't have a mechanism in place right now to administer a Colorado River compact column. We do a very good job of administering stream by stream, but we've never tried to integrate the entire system into an entire Colorado River Basin compact call. So we'll have Colorado litigation. And keep in mind, basically California and Colorado are the major leagues of water law. They're the ones that have all the top water lawyers, all the high-priced, all the best water lawyers. Then you've got the Cactus League, and that's in Arizona, and they've got a lot of practice in Arizona doing it. And then you've got kind of the lower minor leagues, the Wyoming, the New Mexicos. So there are a lot of lawyers that are going to have the process, and a lot of people are going to be trying to get up to the major leagues. So this thing's going to be just a mess from a litigation standpoint. It'll take forever, and will probably have to be resolved after 30 or so years by the Supreme Court. Second piece that we can be assured of is that there'll be legislation, because legislators like to solve problems too. During the 2008 campaign, Senator John McCain, the Republican presidential candidate, came out and said something not a lot dissimilar to what Ken Salazar said, which, this compact thing, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. We need to renegotiate. Well, if you go into a situation where we actually have a train wreck, where we do have a call and we do have all these things going on, you can be assured that the legislators won't be able to resist the temptation to fling right in. So John McCain kind of got beat down. I joined a couple of Democrats writing a letter that says, John, you don't mean this. You don't want to do this. You're being kind of stupid, which got me nothing but derision from my friends in the Republican Party. So that's the next thing that we can have. Then finally, let's look at the last part, which is, what if somebody tries to solve the problem? Who's going to profit? James has already told you the present perfected rights, the pre-1922, the pre-compact rights, are not administered under the compact. So we're just going to, so people are, have a fire sale on those water rights. Now the problem we have is that we're spending a lot of time trying to figure out where they are and how we're going to use them. But one thing we can be assured of, there are two entities that have more money than agriculture, and that'll be the municipalities, who we're not going to see dry up and blow away. They're not going to let that happen. And of course the other states, like Nevada, who have already come in and tried to buy Colorado River and had good folks in Colorado try and sell them water in the past, which is not allowed under the compact. So, are the farmers going to get rich? No, probably not. As a former lawyer for the Farm Bureau, I can assure you that generally when it looks like the farmer is going to make money, then somebody will step in and change the system so that they can't make any money on it. So that's kind of the train wreck that we're looking down the path. So having set up the train wreck, let me turn it over to John to tell you why it isn't going to be a train wreck.